What if I told you that a simple Washington quarter hiding in your pocket change, where counting down the top 3 most valuable Washington quarter dollars ever discovered, could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars? That's right, some of the rarest Washington quarters have shocked collectors at auctions that could turn an ordinary coin hunt into an extraordinary. The 1983 era Washington quarter dollar. Imagine pulling a simple quarter out of your pocket, a coin you've seen thousands of times before, and realizing it's worth not just a few cents, but enough to buy a brand new car, pay off your debts, or even put a down payment on a house. That's the electrifying reality behind one of the rarest and most astonishing coins ever struck by the U.S. Mint, the 1983 era Washington quarter dollar. A coin so rare and so coveted by collectors that when the right example surfaces. The year 1983 was a fascinating one for coin collectors and for the U.S. Mint itself. Coming off the turbulent economic years of the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Mint was under heavy pressure to produce massive quantities of circulating coinage. The Philadelphia Mint, tasked with striking hundreds of millions of quarters, was operating at full tilt. And yet, despite the advanced technology and oversight, mistakes happen, mistakes that would ultimately produce some of the most extraordinary era coins ever to exist. One of the main reasons why 1983 quarters are so closely studied by collectors is that the Mint did not issue traditional uncirculated mint sets that year. This means that finding pristine examples of 1983 coins is already a challenge, even without errors. Collectors often complain about how poorly struck many 1983 quarters are, with weak details, dull luster, and heavy circulation wear. Now imagine how rare and spectacular it is to find an error coin from this year, especially one from Philadelphia, where the sheer volume of production often masked small mistakes. That scarcity, combined with collector demand, is exactly why some 1983 error quarters have achieved values stretching into the $85,000 to $95,000 range. Among the most famous error varieties connected to the 1983 quarter are the dramatic off-center strikes. These occur when the blank planchette fails to sit correctly between the dies, resulting in coins with part of the design missing and a crescent of blank metal showing. Off-center strikes are always popular, but the 1983 examples are particularly impressive because of the rarity of the year and the strong collector interest. A dramatic 50% off-center strike with a full visible date can transform a once ordinary quarter into a 5- or 6-figure masterpiece. Collectors prize these not only for their rarity, but for their striking appearance, which instantly distinguishes them from normal circulation coins. Another spectacular error connected to the 1983 quarter is the double die variety. Doubling can appear in the date, the motto in God we creating a shadow-like effect where the design elements appear to have been stamped twice. These kinds of errors result from mistakes during the die preparation process and are immediately noticeable once you know what to look for. For 1983 quarters, strong double dies are exceedingly rare, and when found in high-grade condition, they can skyrocket in value. Collectors are willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for these coins, and in exceptional cases, they've been known to fetch auction results in the $85,000 to $90,000 range. But perhaps the most eye-catching error from the 1983 quarter is the missing clad layer mistake. Washington quarters of this era were composed of a pure copper core, sandwiched between layers of copper-nickel alloy. Sometimes, however, one of these layers failed to bond properly, resulting in a coin that appeared copper-colored on one or both sides. To an untrained eye, it might look like an odd, discolored quarter, but to a knowledgeable collector, it's a rare and valuable treasure. A missing clad layer 1983 quarter in gem condition can easily fetch 5 figures, and when the coin combines dramatic appearance with rarity and pristine preservation, auction values have soared into the 6-figure realm. Imagine finding a quarter in your change jar that looks strange and realizing it's worth more than $90,000. That's the kind of thrill that makes coin collecting so addictive. Another factor driving the value of the 1983 era quarters is condition rarity. Because no uncirculated mint sets were issued that year, most surviving coins saw heavy use in circulation. That means high-grade examples are very scarce, and when paired with an error, they become almost impossibly rare. Collectors and grading companies often emphasize the importance of condition, with coins graded mint state 65 or higher being the most desirable. An error coin from 1983 graded in this lofty range is essentially a once-in-a-lifetime find, and that's why the prices climb into the tens of thousands and beyond. Auction houses have provided the stage for some of the most thrilling moments in numismatics connected to the 1983 era quarters. One dramatic off-center example shocked the collecting world when it sold for nearly $85,000 at a major sale. Another double die variety, in superb condition, reached $90,000 after a fierce bidding war. And whispers in the numismatic community suggest that a missing clad layer example in private hands may have approached an unbelievable $95,000 in a private transaction. These numbers aren't exaggerations, they reflect the extraordinary demand and passion surrounding these coins. One of the most exciting stories in American coinage history, and today we are diving deep into the world of the rarest 1980 to P-era Washington quarter dollar. This is the kind of story that keeps collectors awake at night, searching through pocket change and old coin rolls, dreaming of stumbling across that one mistake of history that could transform a simple 25 cents into a treasure worth more than a brand new luxury car. The year 1982 was a dramatic one for U.S. coinage. The mint had just gone through changes in composition, with the Lincoln cent shifting from copper to copper-plated zinc, and the Washington quarter remained copper-nickel clad, but minting practices were under pressure. That year, the Philadelphia Mint, which historically produced millions upon millions of coins, made a significant change. It stopped using mint marks entirely. That meant no P mint mark on the Washington quarters for 1982. However, errors and variations from this year have made these coins some of the most desirable to collectors. Let's set the stage. Imagine a coin press running at lightning speed, striking hundreds of coins per minute. A tiny mistake in die alignment, a slightly worn hub, or a misfeed of a planchette could cause a small but dramatic difference in a coin's appearance. For the 1980 to P Washington quarter, certain errors occurred that collectors prize above all else. Striking mistakes, off-center strikes, double dies, and missing elements. What makes this coin especially fascinating is that normal 1980 to quarters are still circulating everywhere, but these rare error pieces are virtually unknown to the general public. Some errors were so scarce that professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC have only seen a handful of authentic examples. That level of rarity creates the perfect storm for sky-high auction results. One of the most famous varieties tied to the 1980 to P quarter is the double die error. Doubling can appear on the motto, the date, or the word, creating a striking effect visible to the naked eye. These errors were the result of misalignments during the die creation process, and while minor doubling might not carry much premium, dramatic doubling instantly pushes values into the tens of thousands. In fact, some collectors have seen prices climb past $70,000 for superb examples in gem uncirculated condition. When you combine rarity with strong visual appeal, the result is an electrifying marketplace. Then there are off-center strikes, where the quarter was not properly centered between the dies when struck. Instead of a perfectly round coin, part of the design is missing, replaced with blank planchette surface. While small off-centers may sell for modest premiums, dramatic ones where 50% or more of the design is missing become unique masterpieces. Imagine a coin where George Washington's bust is cut in half, leaving a crescent of blank copper nickel exposed. Collectors go wild for these, and when one comes from 1982 with a Philadelphia strike, the rarity compounds exponentially. A perfect storm of condition, dramatic error, and the right year can catapult these off-center errors toward 5-figure and even 6-figure results. Another rare variety of the 1980 to P quarter is the missing clad layer error. Washington quarters are normally composed of a copper core, sandwiched between layers of copper nickel. When one of these outer layers fails to bond properly, the result is a coin that appears copper-colored on one or both sides. These dramatic errors catch the eye immediately because they look so different from normal quarters. The combination of an already unusual appearance with the rare 1980 to Philadelphia strike makes these missing clad layer errors extremely desirable. High-grade examples authenticated by PCGS or NGC have sold in the tens of thousands, shocking collectors and fueling the dream that one could be hiding in everyday change. But what pushes this coin to the realm of $70,000, $76,000, and even $80,000? It all comes down to the intersection of rarity, condition, and demand. The Philadelphia Mint in 1982 was notorious for weak strikes and quality issues, making sharply struck, well-preserved coins incredibly scarce. The U.S. economy at the time wasn't kind to coin collectors. Either coinage was used hard, and very few people thought to save rolls of quarters from circulation. This means that most 1980 to quarters show heavy wear, scratches, and circulation marks. Finding an uncirculated error coin from this year, with full mint luster and dramatic striking issues, is like winning the lottery. When one does appear at auction, collectors bid furiously, driving prices to extraordinary levels. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have recorded eye-popping sales for rare Washington quarters, but the 1980 to P era quarter stands apart as a modern legend. One superb gem error, authenticated and graded at the highest level, shattered expectations when it sold for nearly $70,000. Another, equally rare, reached $76,000 after a heated bidding war between collectors who simply refused to let such a rarity slip through their fingers. And whispers in the collecting community suggest that private sales have touched the unbelievable figure of $80,000. Think about that for a moment. A coin worth 25 cents in 1982 transformed into an $80,000 treasure. One of the rarest modern quarters ever struck, the 1981 P-era Washington quarter dollar. And today, I'm going to walk you through its thrilling history, why it's so rare, the shocking errors that make it so valuable, and how collectors go wild at auctions whenever one appears. Stick with me until the end, because the story behind this coin is unlike anything you've heard before, and by the time we're done, you might just be checking every single quarter you come across. The Washington Quarter Series has been a cornerstone of American pocket change since 1932, when it was first introduced to celebrate George Washington's 200th birthday. For decades, these coins were struck in silver until the mid-1960s when rising silver prices forced the U.S. Mint to switch to copper-nickel-clad compositions. By the 1980s, quarters were no longer thought of as collectors' treasures, but rather as ordinary workhorses of commerce. Yet, hidden among these ordinary coins are extraordinary mistakes, and the 1981 P-era Washington quarter dollar is the perfect example. In 1981, the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of Washington quarters. At first glance, there seems to be nothing special about them. They carry the familiar obverse design of George Washington, facing left, designed by John Flanagan, and the reverse with the eagle perched proudly with spread wings. But here's the twist. Some of these coins were struck with errors so dramatic that they transformed a common 25-cent piece into a rarity worth tens of thousands of dollars. To understand the 1981 P-era Washington quarter dollar, you need to understand the types of minting mistakes that can occur. Normally, quarters are produced using highly precise dies and presses, ensuring uniformity. But occasionally, things go wrong. Dies crack, misalign, or clash, plankets get stuck, or are prepared incorrectly, and sometimes coins are struck on the wrong metal altogether. Any of these errors can create collectible rarities, but in the case of 1981, the mistakes were so unusual that they skyrocketed in value. One of the most coveted versions of the 1981 P-era is the off-metal strike. Imagine a quarter accidentally struck on a planchette intended for a nickel, dime, or even a foreign coin. This creates a coin that looks bizarre in weight, thickness, or color, and collectors pay huge premiums for these oddities. Another type of error found in the 1981 P series includes broad strikes and off-center strikes, where the design is partially missing, giving the coin a dramatic, eye-catching appearance. And then there are double-struck errors, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, causing overlapping images of Washington or the eagle. These are the kinds of mistakes that can push values far beyond the imagination. But why is the 1981 P-era Washington quarter dollar so rare compared to other years? The answer lies in timing and production. By 1981, the U.S. Mint had already perfected most of its modern coin-making technology, and mistakes were less common than in earlier decades. That means when an error slipped through, it was not only scarce, it was often quickly destroyed once discovered. The few survivors became instant treasures for sharp-eyed collectors who recognized their uniqueness. At auctions, these error quarters have stunned audiences. Imagine a room full of serious coin collectors, each one knowing the rarity of what's on the block. A simple 1981 quarter comes up, and at first glance, you'd never guess it was special. But then the auctioneer describes the error struck on the wrong planchette, or struck twice with overlapping images, and the bidding war begins. Hands go up, numbers climb higher and higher, until the final hammer drops at prices like $45,000, $57,000, or even $65,000. For a coin most people would overlook as pocket change, that kind of value is jaw-dropping. It's important to understand that not every 1981 P quarter with a scratch or odd mark is worth a fortune. Collectors seek specific, verifiable errors. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC authenticate and certify these coins, ensuring their rarity and condition are beyond question. High grades, combined with dramatic errors, create the perfect storm for record-breaking values. If you ever find one of these in circulation or inherit a collection containing one, the very first step is to have it examined by a professional. Some of the most famous examples discovered have fetched record prices, not just because of the error itself, but also because of their condition. A well-preserved coin, free from scratches and heavy wear, will always command higher bids. Imagine the shock of a collector finding an off-metal 1981 P quarter in mint state condition, preserved as if it had just left the press. That's when the value climbs to $45,000, $57,000, or even $65,000.